Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome along to episode 78 of the Sofa Manager Scottish Football Podcast. And this year, following on from our sexiest team of 2018-19 season review, which was 2017-2018 season review, we have this year's Falkirk Football Club season review. Maybe slightly different in tone this year, as you'll probably tell by the seaside background noise we've got going on there. Anyway, for today's analysis, we have myself, Paul, and the former ropeiest announcer of Falkirk Football Club. We'll get to why as to later. And we're also very fortunate to be joined by the man who has absconded the country after writing some scathing words in some deep article that has gandered the eyes of many and has made ourselves infamous throughout the hardened Falkirk community. It is our editor-in-chief, John Brown. Hello, John.
Hello, Paul. How are we doing?
I'm good. I mean, on screen right now you're to the side of me, but I keep looking down because on my iPad you're below instead of alongside, so I'm going to try and keep that in mind. But if you haven't yet, go over to sofamanager.com and check out John's article. It's a very good, thorough read, delving into the depths of various people's LinkedIn profiles and taking a dig at the various universities that they went to, which I thought was an interesting stat. So that's a thorough recommendation. So anyway, on the show this week, we'll obviously be talking about what happened on the final day, some of the protests that did and didn't go to plan, whilst goals interrupting that, which is quite interesting. We'll also be speaking about where we think it went wrong, singing along to good old Maggie May and drawing parallels with Margaret Thatcher back in the day, which should be interesting. And we'll be discussing what we thought and an alternate timeline as to what would have happened if Peter Houston had stayed on, as well as nominating some award winners. And we've got some trivia along the way as well, so be sure to keep an eye out for that and try and answer things. But anyway, shall we get straight into things, John?
Yeah, fire away.
Cracking. Okay, so we will start with some statistics. Finished 10th this season in the Championship, which is rock bottom and relegation struck, unfortunately. So 38 points, winning 9 of 36 games, despite having the third highest average attendance in the league. And compare that to last season, they finished 8th with 47 points, ahead of only Dumbarton and Brecon. Some other statistics: Zach Rudden finishes as 4th top scorer in the league with 12 goals. They were knocked out of the Scottish Cup at first time of asking by Stennismuir, knocked out of the League Cup in the group stages, and knocked out of the Challenge Cup in the second round by Connah's Quay. So not a great season, John.
No, it's
statistically.
Horrific. It's horrific. That's why I left.
Your leaving did coincide.
I can see it coming a mile off.
You only got half your money's worth of your season ticket. Well, none of us foresaw this as of last season. I think, we were all quite positive about Paul Hartley and what we were expecting of the new regime this season.
This is it. I mean, we all kind of bought into the Hartley revolution. He had signed a bunch of players no one had ever heard of, half of them, maybe all of them, and they were exciting, they were different, and you kind of hoped they were going to actually do something. It never panned out, obviously. I think half of them have already left, and the other half will be on their way out.
Well, that brings me to my first question: how many players do you think came and went into the Falkirk squad this season?
The numbers go that high. It must have been at least 20, 25.
I've got 28.
Yeah,
as the number.
Surprise me.
But it's funny because doing some research for this episode, I must admit I've forgotten a lot of this season, and I think quite rightly so. But names like Marcus Haber coming back up, and I was like, oh, aye.
That guy.
Mind him.
Mess.
Playing mostly reserve games, kind of coming on as a substitute. Dumbuya was another one. He's ended up in the United States, never really featured for us. Tom Owen Evans and, all this nonsense.
Aye, 6th, 7th tier. I think he's in the 6th tier English football. Tom Dallason's in the 7th. somewhere.
Well, that's the thing, a lot of them going back to like Crawley Town, and it is amazing that we've been able to forget players so quickly.
You could make almost a starting 11 from the players have already left, or you're completely forgotten about. You would have Leo Fassan or David Mitchell in goal, Dumbuya right back, Harrison and Allison centres, Patrick Bruffy left back. Andy Irving in the midfield with Paul Payton and Abdul Osman eventually. Andy Irving,
I totally forgot about Irving as well.
Reece Greenwood, Denon Lewis,
Ruben Sammet is another one too.
Christ, it's just you couldn't even it's hard to define them as well, because they weren't exactly, they weren't journeymen, they were only 19, 20 year old, but they had no experience, they had no first team experience. They've been playing in the English equivalent of the reserve league.
But then you reflect on last season, people like Jakubiak, people like Nelson, who did a really good job for us, came from those positions. So we were all for that.
Yeah, there was a basis for the optimism.
Yes,
you had the best one was Denon Lewis. You had Denon Lewis who played in the same team as Alex Jakubiak in the Watford reserves or under 23s. Jakubiak was a star.
Yes,
and
still is for Bristol Rovers, I think.
Yeah, he's doing quite well for Bristol Rovers. But Denon Lewis was the exact opposite. It's like how can that happen?
Well, the funny thing was at the start of the season, Denon Lewis was trying to convince Jakubiak to come with him.
This is it.
Imagine the difference in our season if that had been the case.
That's the biggest thing we're looking back in the summer as well. I mean, if Hartley had got Jakubiak back, if he had got Andy Nelson back, I think it would have been a bit of a different story this season. Of course, it would have been, those two were really good players. I think we still had midfield and defensive issues, but at least you would have a strike force to build on.
Absolutely. We'll get to the roots of those issues, but we'll start with what's fresh in the memory.
Yep.
And that was the final day victory against Ross County. 3-2 was the result overall, despite going 2-1 down. And yeah, obviously on that final day we had to win. Alloa had to lose, and Queen of the South, basically there was like an 8-goal swing that needed to happen.
Yeah, pretty much.
And they lost pretty heavily to Partick Thistle, who were all but safe at that point. So I mean, did you catch much of the game itself at all?
I've seen snippets while I listened to it on open all mics. That's about as good as it gets down here. And I have seen highlights as well. It was tense, I think. Everybody kind of expected us to go down, but when we did take the lead, you're thinking, half a chance here. And obviously Alloa and Ayr were, at that point I think it was one each.
Yeah.
And Partick were absolutely annihilating Queen of the South. They got to the point where you were actually thinking, if we get another goal here against County, anything could happen. If Partick keep going up 3, 4, 5 goals, maybe we'll catch them. It's maybe kind of.
Yeah, it was ambitious, but it could have happened.
It was ambitious. It's the last day of the season. Anything could happen, but I think the inevitable happened was the outcome.
Well, that's the thing. I think the funny thing though about watching the game itself is that we might as well have been projecting the Alloa game onto the pitch instead of watching what we were watching at times. And it was funny because obviously we'll get into it a bit later, but there's huge unrest obviously with the fans and the board and stuff like that, and Falkirk went 2-1 down, and I thought, blimmin' typical this is. Jet to the front of the stand and protest, rightly so, start chanting, sack the board, and within 15 seconds of this happening, boom, Jordan McGee or whatever strides forward and smashes it in the back of the net. It's back to 2-2. They then start chanting again. Another 30 seconds later, another 3-2 up. As I put on the Instagram story, it was absolute scenes, but I certainly know that my celebrations were muted because it might have meant nothing, and it did ultimately mean nothing. And I think a lot of people were saying that was a much more spirited display, which was good to see, but we did need to see that much earlier.
It should have happened 6 or 7 games ago. I mean, you look at the Partick, Alloa and Morton home games. They were 3 must-win games. I think we've got maybe a point out of the 9. That killed it. Again, if you're going to be even more picky, the Queen of the South away game, when the fans are on the park at the end.
Well,
you know,
there's the question. Did the fans ultimately lose Falkirk the league?
Yeah, that's where the abuse will come in now, or the banter. Is like, well, you've cost your own team safety by running on the park. I can kind of see where that's coming from, but over a season, you know, Falkirk have deserved to go down. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I'm looking at when he's kind of stat boards. I think 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Over half the season, we spent 10th.
Well, yeah. Oh, that was going to be one of my quiz questions too. Was how many match days have we been 10th? And we've been bottom for we've only been off the bottom for 11 match days. And there was a highest league position of 8th. Do you know when that was?
It was around about. They came off it around about March. I'm sure February or March.
Game 1 of the season was 8th. Everything else was 9th or 10th, according to a graph I looked at. And that must have...
For what I can remember, we were 8th for a little bit near the end of the season.
I think there was. I think that because there was games in advantage and things like that.
It's kind of thrown
something
out.
I looked at kind of changed it there. So, you know, looking at that, and congratulations to Alloa and Partick Thistle for their survival. Partick Thistle managing what we couldn't and signing some reasonable players and putting together a reasonable team with what I think is a duff manager still.
Yeah, well, he'll get found out next season. It's the same thing as well, though. It's what could have been if we had signed Scott McDonald rather than going to Partick. There's a swing.
I mean, surely we would have had that buying power rights again. We shall get to. You know, the fans obviously very much in unrest with the board for a number of reasons. You know, the transfer decisions, the youth, and you know, I sent you videos at the time of them, you know, with their sit-in after the game, which was better than the 5 people the week before that tried it.
Yeah.
And they were all stood outside the stadium. I heard rumours about, you know, they were attacking Margaret Lang's car or something like that. I've seen no evidence of that.
I've seen a video of them chasing one of the directors, Andy Thompson, out of the car park.
Right.
In his BMW SUV. Allegedly, the tyres have been slashed on the other cars. I highly doubt it, but
I think this is all. I tell you what, though, they did have some sort of firecrackers, and I've never heard anything as loud
really?
in my life. It was like bang, and the dirt was gone. No, it was something along those lines. But I totally see the frustration because the boards have not listened in any way, shape, or form. The only way to get your voice across now is to go to these extremes, I think.
Yeah,
so
hound them. Yep.
On that vein of thought, as you're an expert on this, you've got an in-depth article that I'm sure everyone's clicked on and read by now, which will be linked below. What went wrong this season?
It's not so much this season, it's what's happened with seasons previous.
Go into it. What do you think?
Well, you know, how far back do you want to go? If you take it from, as this is an article 2 years ago, they kind of got found out in that playoff against Dundee United. Last 15 minutes, there was an opportunity for Houston to get an opportunity to sort of build a squad again. It was blatantly obvious what the limitations were in that squad. As far as I'm aware, what the kind of rumours were at the time, he was never given the budget, he was never given the kind of flexibility to go and sign players out with a 25-mile radius of the stadium. I don't know if that's true or not, but if that is the case, then that's obviously a bit of a hamstring. He subsequently lost his job because he couldn't bring in, you know, potentially players that were better than John Rankin or, you know, Nathan Austin or something like that. So that becomes a bit of an issue. He gets sacked, Hartley comes in, and all of a sudden it's like, well, you know, free reign, go do what you want. It was one extreme to the other, which was mad. They get the the kind of chief scout, Richard Mitchell, who was also an agent, signed the whole raft of guys with absolutely no checks and balances being done on these players coming in. Apparently Hartley had never seen them before. Again, don't know if that's true or not.
Oh, brilliant.
So you're now at the stage where, you know, Hartley's 8 games into this season, a squad full of absolute numpties. They all have to be paid off. McKinnon comes in. They've evidently tapped him up, even if they deny it. You know, they have been found one way or another, sort of backroom chats, which is a bit kind of daft for Scottish football. But, you know, and it's all went downhill from there. Buchanan's been up against it. There's been the sideshow that is Green Morton, always in the background, and they've never really been able to move on from it. That's obviously superficial, what's kind of happening around the park. Behind the scenes, I think the major shareholder group simply don't care anymore. It's quite apathetic. You have Craig Campbell, who is a businessman. He's not a football man. He's also a Highby. He has agendas.
Didn't know that.
I'm sure he's a big Highby fan. He's a season ticket holder, I'm sure. Or he used to be anyway.
That's a brave move, aye.
He's a curious character. I mean, he's purportedly on between £75,000 and £100,000 a year. So in other terms, that's a right back, a centre mid and a forward. It could be going into the first team.
That's an entire team, aye.
If you listen to sort of Peter Houston's sort of previous comments, I think it was last Tuesday, on Sports Sound, he has sort of denoted that Chairman Margaret Lang and the rest of the board were quite happy with sort of the youth academy and what was kind of eventually going to come through. Craig Campbell came in and he's took an axe to it all. Quite how one man can do that, I don't know, but that was the rationale of getting rid of that, and they've just spunked the money left, right and centre on absolute diddies.
I know, I would wholeheartedly agree with that. I think from my perspective, you know, this season I was, if people don't know, and I think I talk about it enough, I was the assistant announcer at Falkirk, so I operated the buttons, did the music and things like that. And I, in the last game of the season, resigned my post because I wasn't enjoying it anymore. I wasn't having a good time because of what was happening on the pitch, obviously. And I think, well, it was a very scary day from our perspective because there was a lot of people worried about, you know, their jobs going down to League One and things like that for one. It was a very odd atmosphere, you know, with people in tears and things like that. And I think what gets me is that the reason we volunteer is so that there's more money in the playing budget to see a better product on the pitch.
Exactly. I mean, you're not even getting a pie out of it.
No. The working conditions are ridiculous. That's another complaint. We have to buy our own space heater so that the equipment doesn't freeze, which is ridiculous. But, you know, I think what's frustrated me most about this season is the squandering of money that has gone on. Now, feel free to interject if you disagree with any of this, but since Falkirk collapsed nearly collapsed in the 90s or so.
Aye, the Bennett administration, I can't even remember the date, it was in the 90s.
In the 90s. They've been run relatively frugally. Falkirk have always been run from a business perspective and never reached too far beyond their means to kind of keep things sensible.
They did it once. When they tried to push for top six. And Yogi spent a lot of money on has-beens, Neil Buchanan, Jackie McNamara, really brilliant. That's the only time they've really loosened the purse strings and went absolutely nuts.
But beyond that,
it caused collapse. But yeah,
beyond that, it's been run relatively reasonably. And then come along this season, and I am going to call them pirates. All of a sudden, we have all these war chests to suddenly be picked at, and you know. They were picked at, and the famous statement I say to everybody is it's the most money anyone's ever spent to finish bottom of the championship. Wow. And it might not be this value now, but it will come to this value eventually. It is millions of pounds that have been pumped into this nonsense. And
for different things as well.
Well, exactly. Well, yeah, between fines, the lawyers and stuff, and maybe it's her that write the contracts in these for these players must be making loads of money off the nonsense that we are, you know, up to. And at that point, and I know it's not necessarily coming all from us, but a lot of the money, you know, comes from the fans that are paying the tickets every week. Well, obviously they turned away the money for investment, but the time I put in there unpaid as well, and they're wasting my time, they're wasting people's money, and it's not on. It's just not on. And
no, not at all.
The final point I would make is that they sat down and tore up loads of players' contracts. You know, players that were essentially club legends because they weren't good enough to be in the playing squad. The powers that be need to look at them now, I think, and say, well, if these players weren't good enough, you're not good enough.
Aye. What have we got now? You know, it's a huge issue. You're right. I mean, in fines and trying to get Ray McKinnon alone, they've maybe spent maybe $250,000.
Yeah, probably.
and that includes sort of paying off Paul Hartley, which was about 60 grand. They've been fined 60 grand, so it was 120. 40 grand again went straight to Morton rather than the SPFL Trust.
That was a weird agreement, wasn't it, to be pals again?
So it was that was Lex Miller sort of playing. That's the only thing that I've actually read about him in the last 15-20 years. He's a Falkirk director. The guy is a prawn sarnie muncher. That's what he does. Like, that's what he's there for. He's just there to make his pals feel jealous. Oh, I'm kicking about Falkirk. Look at all these players I'm seeing, and
that's the thing. I mean,
the definition of a hanger on.
Yeah, at this point, you have to think that the people on the board and the people in those positions are power hungry, and they don't want to lose, because football is a narrow industry. There's not many people that can work in these jobs.
I mean, I do wonder if there is an ulterior motive for one or two of them as well. Margaret Lang being in a particular position.
But what would the alternative motive be?
I think she's angling for a job in the SFA.
I mean, every chance.
There has to be a kind of, why else would she be doing it? Why else would she be taking that stick every week? Why is Craig Campbell there? Because he's making 100 grand a year and doing absolutely bugger all. That's his motive. There's no other motive there. There's nothing to benefit the club so long as his pockets are lined.
Well, that's the thing. You could kind of accept it, and at the end of the day, these are also human beings as well that should be treated respectfully, is what I would say. But if you're trying your best and all that jazz, fair enough. But
there's nothing to suggest they are.
Well, the problem is, even if they are, it's not being communicated at all.
Well, they've all went quite quiet, funnily enough.
And that's the thing in the last game of the season as well. They all tried to disappear into the sunset without facing the fans, which is it's quite a timid way of dealing with things. Now, do I think there's anything that you could have done that day to reason with the fans? I don't think so, and it wouldn't have benefited anybody. But
unless it was a resignation letter, you were never going to get away lightly.
If only. I mean, there was speculation as to the time is that what we would see, after the match. But I remember that Netflix documentary, Sunderland Till I Die. They had a wretched season, and it was funny because you followed Martin Bain throughout the whole thing, their director of football, he was a very reasonable, quite an intelligent guy doing his best. They got relegated to League One, twice on the trot, and he went, because he wasn't doing his job properly, essentially.
Yeah, they failed. They tried it, they failed. That's the thing. The biggest problem now is, if you're a major shareholder, right, if you're Sandy Alexander, you want to hold on to that board as long as possible, because it is taking the brunt of abuse that really should be aimed at the major shareholder group. They're the ones that really hold the power. They can vote people on and off the board.
They're all too chummy at that point.
This is it. I mean, to take it another way as well, if you're looking at what happens now if they are going to sell the club, have you heard of the three different kind of proposals?
I'm presuming one of these is American based.
Yeah, so there's an American investment group allegedly looking at it. There's obviously the fan ownership, and there's a third party, and the speculations being it's the people that own Park Hotel, the Hannigan Group, I think they're called.
Oh, aye, I know the people you're talking about.
I've read it on that Facebook group, the Falkirk Facebook group. That's the kind of third
party.
Well,
for a start, the American thing, they would presumably only be in it to make money.
I mean, there won't be a face to that.
No,
as far as I'm aware, it will be a sort of investment trust.
But then to make money out of Falkirk is going to take a bit of time, because they're not going to make money in League One. They weren't making a whole lot of money in the Championship, I don't imagine. Prize money, by the way, we are down hundreds of thousands of pounds as well for finishing 10th. It's
about $500,000.
Good grief. It all compounds on each other, and we've run out of war chest money. What's going to turn up next season? Fan ownership, I think the club is currently just a little bit too expensive and a little bit out of reach for that to...
I wonder about that as well, though. I mean, who has the bargaining power in that one? Who values it?
But the problem is, I don't think with the current situation anyone would be willing to sell the club to the fans, despite that sort of soft, invitation. that, you know, they would take fan investment and stuff like that, which was then patched for this American money.
Aye, it was booted into the long grass pretty quickly, which either means there was a resentment towards it, or it was just unsustainable in the view of the board of directors. Without actually seeing a kind of business plan, it's hard to say.
I think it's never healthy, and we saw with the fans, you know, saving the money to buy a player, and that was Rory Loy. That was never a great idea. You know, that's very toxic. You know, you've wasted your money on something that's not helped. And I would question as well whether the fan base has the organisation to run the club.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Because there's a lot of, and you've been in contact with the head honchos over the coming days. You know, the big voices in the community, and none of them really seem to be connected.
It becomes all agenda driven, and everybody's got a different opinion.
Exactly.
And when you've got 4,500 people with a different opinion, there becomes a bit of an issue.
Exactly. So I don't see.
I do think there has to be a big player in it. I don't see any reason why. Let's say, for example, a group as the Hannigan group, for example, right? Mm-hmm. You take that kind of 51-49 model that the Germans use.
I don't talk about models.
So
Brentford's, you know, Fleetwood, all that nonsense.
It's who you have to have somebody who actually understands a bit of business and how to run an organisation that size. Because otherwise, you're just going to have, like I say, 4,500 minority shares in shareholding. Mm-hmm. What does it come under? Is it all individuals? Is it under a collective? You know, how does it hasn't been communicated properly as to how it actually operates.
Well, I mean, if it is to happen, nonetheless, it's still going to be a while away, because, you know, this is only sort of murmurings we're hearing, and there's no
and this is it.
firm interest on the
things
table.
As well, the board or the major shareholders group they're kind of pinging out the long grass as long as they can as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the club as an asset as well is going to, you know, the stadium's starting to show its age a bit, you know.
That becomes an issue as well, because they don't actually own large parts of that stadium.
I know. Well, they own the seats
North
in the stand. Aye, they own the north stand. The south stand's owned by
Sandy Alexander, who's one of the major shareholders.
And then they don't own anything behind it. Now, apparently the plan this year was to build more AstroTurf, because it's the second biggest income for the club, opposite the current pitch.
Aye.
But they couldn't do that because of, you know, the fines and stuff that were in place. And, you know, as well with the cutting of the academy, which was a huge revenue stream.
That was a big mistake.
But then for me, like, as well, that they haven't been utilising that academy enough in the last 3 seasons. You know, when we went along to, and we're almost experts, some might say, in this, because we went along to a lot of development league games.
I would have been every nearly home game.
Exactly. Well, I had to be at every home game. Otherwise, the microphone and stuff would they have, not that anyone cared, but it was good fun, and we got a McDonald's after it, which was amazing.
Exactly. Can't complain.
I would say there was a good 3 players in that team that could have been making occasional appearances for the first team. And some of those guys were released. Some of those guys have still been playing reserve league this season, but have I seen them on the pitch? Nah. And, you know, if you're not willing to use them, they're not going to develop. But then, looking at Tony Gallagher as well, you were almost scared to show him, because every moment he was on the pitch, his value dropped through the floor.
The biggest problem with Tony Gallagher is every time he was used in sort of pressure games.
Aye.
And by that point, we were up against it when he started coming into it.
Aye.
I mean, I remember he had a... What? I don't know if you were there. We went to Morton, funnily enough. Away to Morton.
Yes.
And he got absolutely roasted off. Was it Nesbitt? Aidan Nesbitt.
Could have been at the time.
He was on loan for Celtic, and he got torn to shreds. And he was never seen again for a couple of months. And then he came back for a Christmas fixture against Dunfermline away.
It was woeful.
And he was pretty woeful. He did set up one of the goals, but yeah, he was coming in random games, and they were quite tough games and tough periods, and it was never ideal for him.
But then that's the thing. I mean, if that goes, you know, the likes of, you know, Volks, I know wasn't ours to start with, but he came through that kind of system. And you've got your Arfields, you've got you know, Blair Alston, you've got.
I mean, even it depends on how far back you want to go. I mean, Darren Barr must have came through quite early on. He had a good season to a point. win the Scottish Cup with Hearts and all that.
Well, it was Tam Scobie as well, who I saw got relegated with Brecon the other day.
Scobie to an extent done quite well. Trying to go else. Murray Wallace was in it for a year or two when he was 16, 17, 18.
He's doing really well now.
Doing well in the Championship, scoring against Everton in the FA Cup.
The lads that are at Swansea as well, you know.
Aye, granted one or two of them may not make it. The one that's at Dunfermline just now has had it as far as I'm concerned.
Aye.
But Botty Babby's still got a fair chance. Like, he's still in the academy. Kingsley's still playing for Hull at a decent level.
He's kind of the next Robertson, hopefully.
Jay Fulton's getting a regular game for Swansea as well.
Well,
so these are names. Like,
that's the thing. So that's been the whole core identity's gone from what the squad was to. Because I think when you used to turn up to watch a Falkirk game, we used to be seen in, bear with me here, as almost a mini Hibernian. And now, when I say that, I mean, remember Hibernian back in the day used to play no, Hibernian pre the whole Hibsit thing used to play good football, good passing football.
With young players as well.
With young players. That's what we did to a slightly lesser success. And they used to say that Hibs were like the Arsenal of Scotland. So Falkirk were essentially the mini Arsenal of Scotland, which I think was warranted. I used to watch wonderful football at the Falkirk Stadium. And even under Houston, there was good attacking play with quite young players mixed in with probably one experienced player at a time. Be that, a Mark Kerr, or there was always one. And
absolutely.
With the change in management, with the change in the team, everything about that's gone, and you're leaving yourself trying to build another identity, which I think is an incredibly difficult thing to do. Like,
they picked the wrong model as well. I mean, this Brentford model they keep kind of spouting about. I mean, if you look at Brentford though,
they're not even that good.
Geographic, the thing is, I mean, they have like what academies to look at, but Arsenal's, Chelsea's, anything in North London, East London, then they kind of dropouts for West Ham. You can go up into the Midlands because that's where they're based, and they've got ginormous clubs to pick from. Who do we have? Rangers and Celtic dropouts.
I know.
Who'll end up in maybe kind of mid-table Premiership teams.
Well, that was,
who will go to the elite academies as well.
That was the thing as well. Like, we're even loaning Rangers and Celtic dropouts essentially. So there's no value in that either.
We never really. I think Leo Fassan was supposed to be a kind of one of these kind of guys. We'll take him for maybe a year or two and we'll develop him. Hopeless. That was a poor pick. Ruben Samut, I think, was coming in for maybe 6 months to a year, was coming out the Chelsea Academy just to see what he's like. But we'd have got a year development out of him, but again, useless. He came into a very poor team, and I think that's what's kind of maybe hamstrung him a wee bit. So they just never executed it properly.
Well, in my opinion, the only player to show any development this year was that was it Scott Harrison, the centre back, who I'd kind of been raving about in recent weeks, who went from abysmal to being tolerable but slow.
He got a little bit better, yeah.
And then we got.
I think Paddy Brough as well was coming alright.
Who?
Paddy Brough. I thought he was actually.
Is he not still there?
He's still there. I would keep him for next season.
Well, that was one thing that got me as well. Is that Lavery boy? Was it Aidan Lavery? Is his name? He. Like, looking at the sort of match reports and stuff from Reserve League, which I didn't able to go to this year, was tearing it up. He was scoring loads of goals all over the place. Barely got a minute in the park, and he was a wee stocky lad. He had a bit of physicality about him, and I thought Everton must be absolutely beeling that he's getting nowhere near a football pitch whilst right, okay, funny thing, I'll have to tell you this now, but because I was going to moan about Demintas Petrovicius getting near a pitch when he wasn't, but Demintas Petrovicius is an anagram of administrative pause. Which I thought was very good. That was going to be my quiz question for later on, but I thought I'd slot that in there.
That would take me ages to figure that out.
Well, I think with how many letters you would have got there pretty quickly, to be honest. And the thing is as well, people like Nikolai Todorov were playing ahead of Lavery as well, which was nonsense. So let's break this down a bit more into Hartley era, McKinnon era. I do these with fangy hands. Hartley lasted 3 games into the season and was sacked, so not much to say there. McKinnon, well, Hartley actually was sacked with, like, what was his percentage? Yeah, he'd won 16 out of 40 games. McKinnon's won 9 in 35. So McKinnon's got the worst record.
Yeah.
Did things get any better under McKinnon?
No.
I would agree.
The thing is, it could have got much worse, was the thing. But he never managed to kind of get it going again.
I think
he was too feared to push forward. He was too feared to attack.
Well, what I think he did was he came in and he identified the problems very quickly, and he wanted to build from the back. He wanted to improve the defence and then sort things out from there. But he never could improve the defence, so he never got any further forward than that. To the point, our midfield was useless this year.
Yeah, I mean, signing Abdul Osman, which is it was a sketchy move at the time. It could have worked either way. He has been found wanting more times, and it's kind of, I care to admit. But then you're playing him beside Paul Payton, who has about the mobility as Marcel,
and he has been good for spells. So, I mean, it's like,
has he though?
Well, like, he's been in team of the week occasionally. He's scored some good goals, but that's only when he's turned up. Well, he's 32. How could he have improved?
Off the beginning of the season, he's improved.
Oh, yeah, I don't hate him as much. I don't like holding midfielders for a start. I was never a big fan of Mark Kerr either, but
the biggest problem was Paul Payton never had a mobile kind of centre mid to play alongside him,
like a Tom Tywell to do all the legwork and stuff.
If he had somebody to do the legwork beside him, I think he would have looked a lot better. But he had Abdul Osman sitting beside him. He had Ian McShane, who, you know, maybe pay attention for the first 20 minutes and then disappear. It's the same with Ross McLean.
He's a prodigal bench warmer.
You can go through the entire team and tear them to shreds.
So, well, I think we can. The recruitment hasn't been good enough.
The recruitment's been poor,
and we think that probably the young players could have done as good a job, if not better. Like folk like Kieran Dunn and stuff. I think it's equally as good as someone like Petrovicius, probably.
Need it, and he's completely disappeared off the face of the earth.
Despite being, a lot of these guys were under 21 internationalists, under something which is beyond bizarre.
Even was it the Cameron Blues? These kind of guys. It'd been interesting to see what they would have done this season.
Blues would have been interesting. I think Blues probably would have filled the Payton position, all right.
He's in Livingston's
youth
kind of set up just now. The boy went to Brentford, ironically.
Mitchell, Johnny Mitchell.
Yeah, Johnny Mitchell. He must have had a fair shout.
Yeah, but he's an internationalist as well. Didn't they get a look in the first team squad at all? And these guys have gone.
Yep.
And
it wasn't like they weren't producing. They were maybe too young to go into the team regularly. If we were going to like kind of cushion them a wee bit.
Yeah, but you can give them half an hour. Like,
they were on their way. Like,
we're on our way. We're on our way. Seaside. We're on our way.
I mean, they'll just need to send Graham High's high school team and we'll be fine.
The Firth of Forth Football Club that I want to start and protest.
Protest club.
I know. See, Salford City are in some sort of playoffs as well to get to.
National League playoffs.
I think they were getting beat though, so that's probably not going to happen. I think we can agree the signing strategy wasn't great. The youth didn't work out, and tactically under McKinnon,
it's been horrific.
It's been pretty bad. He spoke about not setting the team up negatively, which has been just a blatant lie.
If that's no negative, I'd like to see what he actually thinks is being negative.
But that's the thing. I mean, the arrow wasn't on his back before, but he is now one of the people that people would like to see go.
He's a big target, and it'll be embarrassing. I think it's probably the best word to get it there now, given the amount of absolute garbage we've had to go through this season.
For the banter,
after getting them.
For the banter, get Johansson and Husted. Which I think actually Morton would probably wish upon us at this point because they weren't that popular there either.
No, I think that was a slight blessing in disguise for themselves that they've left in that manner. That's
the thing, far too many teams taking quite a lot of joy that we have not managed to stay up.
Quite right though.
Exactly, that's the arrow on our back, and that's going to be our problem next season into League One, is we are going to be the team to beat. It's going to be like a cup final every time you play whoever you're going to play. We will be quite a big team, but it'd be quite interesting to see how we go on next season in terms of if Queen and South come down, because they will be main competitor. I don't know what kind of state rate they're in. Airdrie are going full time, but I still wouldn't really. Well, we'll see how we go. The last time we were in League One, what would have then been the third division, was in 1979, 1980. And current championship sides finished 1st, 12th and 13th. We finished 1st. Can you name the other two?
Currently in the championship. Alloa must have been in about there.
Alloa, I believe, finished 13th, I think.
Right. Who else is quite diddy in that one? It must have been... I don't think Inverness would have been in existence.
No, it wasn't Inverness.
County wouldn't have been in existence either. Ayr?
No,
Ayr were quite good.
Queen of the South, it was, aye. Do you know who finished second in the league that year, though?
East Stirlingshire.
East Stirlingshire, aye. Blimmin' heck. How times have changed.
I'm sure that went down to the wire that season as well. They could have won the league.
It's actually quite... I showed a picture...
How times could have been different there?
Well, no, I showed a picture on the Instagram the other day. It was absolutely ace. Like, the Falkirk kit was this plain white thing, just with the navy blue surrounded badge. And this horrendous challenge that was being put in on some Queen of the South player. But it looked excellent, actually. So, going into next season, what would you do? You are chairman of the board. You have free reign to do whatever you like.
Everything I want to do, right? Well, you would get the... Presuming the major shareholder group's all the way, it's a brand new, fresh, clean slate. You would get a new manager in, absolutely no doubt about it.
Who do you get in?
Someone who's got a bit of League One experience, I think, is probably the best way to go. Alternatively, I would maybe go for Miller and Kerr.
Well,
as a kind of dynamic duo.
Let's dive into this a bit, because this is something that the fans...
Falkirk fans have been pushing for a wee bit.
Absolutely. Now, to this, what I would say is they would be inexperienced for a start in management, but a clean slate, not a lot of pressure. It's done wonders for actually managers at Alloa, that sort of setup. Hartley, I suppose, started that way. And then
Jim Goodwin as well.
Jack Ross didn't do that though, did he?
No, I think he
just went to St Mirren. Was he anywhere before he was at St Mirren?
I think he was at Alloa.
So I think he maybe used the same springboard. So that'd be good. And I remember as well, were you at the Development League game when they'd sacked Houston and Miller was taking them? And he was very encouraging, he was very positive, so he has that, rapport, he's got that communication.
Yeah.
And Mark Kerr could maybe be more of your tactician. And passing the ball backwards and sideways.
The biggest thing about us going into League One though is you've got to have somebody that's got a bit of kind of connections with bigger clubs to get certain types of players in. I think we're going to need a few kind of old heads in the team.
Where are you going to get it? Like, how many journeymen do you see in League One? You see journeymen in the Championship, fair play, but like I am really struggling to convince people. Unless you pay them the money. If you pay them the money, it'll happen. But where are you going to get the money? Well,
the biggest thing as well is if you decide to take, if you cream off the best players in League One and put them all into the Falkirk team, the majority of them are all part-time. Now, do you want to quit your part-time job, which you're probably making more money than you would going full-time playing football? There were one or two. I would look at Andy Stirling. I think he's quite a good player. Dom Thomas, I think his name is. I think he's played for Dumbarton.
I've heard good things about. Is he the centre-back?
No, I think he's a kind of attacking midfielder.
Okay, I've heard good things.
I maybe think of a different player.
You've always been a big fan of Lewis Vaughan at Wraith.
Lewis Vaughan, I don't know how well he's done this season, but last season he looked quite good. I'd be tempted to have a punt on that Blair Henderson guy in Rossetti. If you banged in 30 goals this season, if you play him in the right system,
if you could convince like folk like Scott Shepherd come back, and
well, there's a manager then, James McDonough.
Oh, that would work. That would work.
He's done quite well at Edinburgh City.
Very well. They were, I'm assuming,
third.
Yeah, so they're in playoff contention now.
Yeah.
Behind a team like Peterhead, who are very established in that league, and you would expect to win, but they've lit up the headlines. I know they had a piece on the Terrace about one of their defenders being the best defender in like League 1 and 2. Yeah. And is it Blair Henderson that you said earlier that plays for them has got like 25-30 goals?
I think he's leading the kind of scoring charts.
Aye, so that could be a shout actually.
I mean, there's a guy he's got experience working for Falkirk.
Unfortunately, he knows the misery.
As kind of Houston's assistant manager, he did leave to take the Edinburgh City job, so he is a man in his own right. So I'd be quite interested to see if he was.
That's a shout.
If he was interested, because it is a step up for himself. No doubt about it.
So you think you try and you have to take these established names first?
I think you've either got to take someone who is quite fresh faced, like Lee Miller or Mark Kerr, or you have to go for somebody that's got experience working with part time and lower league teams and players. And for me at the moment, maybe James McDonough would be a name to pull out the hat.
Well, no, I think that's a good shout. And I saw a tweet earlier, because there was folk talking about obviously the Falkirk relegation on Twitter, and it was a Wraith fan talking about if Ray McKinnon had stayed for one more season at Wraith, what could have been, because they were doing quite well.
And they finished fourth.
And if he'd stayed there another year, that might have continued in his big fall from grace at Dundee United, and then which started to look up again at Morton, and then his dip by. I totally understand why he's left Morton, because there's a total sham with how they've dealt with their management.
I think there's something more sinister going on in the background there, but that's for them to deal with.
Well, I think the rumour was that they were not offered contracts for next year, so they told them to get stuffed for the last game.
I think it was more to do with Charlie Telfer.
What was it? Who knows?
Charlie Telfer was a game away for triggering a 1 year automatic extension,
and they didn't want that.
And the board pretty much didn't play him. We didn't want him for next season.
Well,
and by the way, you guys are not getting your contracts renewed either. So
it's not a great policy.
In spite, I would have just, if Houston and Johansson had any kind of news about them, they would have done the game and they would have put Charlie Telfer off from the start
and absolutely done them, and then they'll come back next season.
Because I don't think the board can stop you from playing a player.
No, they couldn't legally, I suppose. Well, that's the thing. A lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, I would take Houston back in a heartbeat," but I was like, "Nah,
no, you wouldn't."
He was exhausted of ideas, and he did a brilliant job for us. But come the end of his days,
you're absolutely spot on. It was a natural conclusion. It was just a disappointing.
The natural order of things.
The natural order of things.
If I was to speculate, John Hughes is still floating around.
No.
If we get the ragtag gang, excuse me, back together. I was thinking as well of what's the feature? Alternate realities. Earlier, and if Houston had got the money to improve his squad, we would have seen club legends return. Houston would have retired at the end of the season. John Hughes would have come back with Russell Latipe's assistant. The Portuguese connection would be reignited, and we'd become a secondary Wolves team as a refuge for international Portuguese players. Pedro Moutinho's son, along with Tiago Rodriguez's child, would play.
Vitor Lima.
Vitor Lima was there. We did alright out of those. So that's what we need.
I mean, Pele the last season we were in the Premiership.
I don't think that really panned out.
I don't know if you Portuguese or if you Cape Verde or something
like that. So we would forge that connection and become a footballing superpower, in line with Wolverhampton. But no, I think the James McDonough thing's a good idea. If Ray McKinnon were to get the sack now, we're obviously recording this review quite early, so there's loads of different things that could happen in kind of retrospect.
It could be an interesting week.
So another quick quiz question while we've rounded off that topic. Paul Payton had quite an indisciplined season. Where do you think he falls within the discipline rankings of the Scottish Championship?
He'll be behind Higginbottom, who I think has been sent off the most.
He's not behind Higginbottom, but he is. I think Daniel Harvey was the worst player because he had 2 red cards, which kind of puts him up on points.
Ooh. I think Payton had 1. He was sent off at Partick.
He was sent off at Partick. There was 1 red card. Yes.
I was at that game. That was at Firhill.
It's quite early on that.
That was how we were optimistic.
He was. Go for it. Guess.
5th.
3rd most ill-disciplined player in the league. 10 yellow cards and 1 red card. So there you go. One more question as well is what period of the match, what 15-minute period were Falkirk most likely to score? Was it between 0 and 15, 15 and 30, 30 and 45, or 45 and
60.
45 and 60, 60, 75, or 75 and 90?
60, 75.
75 and 90. They were most likely to score in the latter part of the game.
The last 50 minutes, so you could just show up for the last 50 minutes.
I think the reason, well, there's no point in showing up to the first half of championship games because nothing ever happens. But I think the 75 and 90 thing was they'd already be like 2 goals down, so it would essentially be bounce time.
Consolation.
They would get back, exactly. So I think on that basis, it brings us on to our sort of awards section.
Hey.
Glitz and glamour. You wouldn't have known that the Falkirk Gala dinner had taken place because they didn't put any pictures of it on their social media or have any mention of it to avoid any comment. Which was interesting to see. But I think we'll start positively. I think this is an obvious question, but who would your player of the season be?
For Falkirk, it would be Zach.
It would be Zach Rodden. I think I think he's got a long way to go in terms of his footballing development, but a player that played, with passion throughout the year, and you even saw in his celebrations and things like that. One of his goals, though, I honestly thought it wasn't going. It came off pillar post every other Ross County player before it finally rebounded to Rudden.
It was an open goal as well.
Finally able to finish it. I thought this isn't going to happen. We've hit the bar, we've hit the post. It's going to be that kind of day. But he was, I think, one of probably 3 players in that team who was a boy but played like a man and made the rest of them look pretty silly.
No, I'll be interested to see what he does next season.
My thought would
I don't think he's
be loaned out to a better team. Okay, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him at a St Mirren or something like that. Like a sort of cusp Premiership Championship side.
I had him at it depends. If Hamilton get relegated, which is unlikely, if they got relegated into the Championship, he'd be absolutely brilliant in that kind of team, because I think for him he has to play a top Championship team next to see if he can do it in a good team.
Well,
but he's maybe not star man.
If you're scoring 12 goals in a rubbish team,
if you're scoring 12,
you're doing
there's something about you
pretty well.
But I think for him he needs to get a 20-25 goal a season return next season somewhere. And I think for him the best place to do it would be the top of the Championship.
Well, I would agree. Yeah, it's a good shout. I think you're right with it would probably be a more Glasgow based team, so he's not too far from home.
Because I think if Rangers have any sense, they'll want to keep kind of closer tabs on him.
Aye, because that's the thing. I think the rumour I heard where Falkirk were putting in a £50,000 bid for him.
Good.
Which he had and laughed. But the problem with him is he could be worth £200,000. He could be worth £2 million. He's still a very
that's what I'm saying.
difficult thing.
If he can go to a good Championship team next season, bang in 20-25 goals, he can go back to Rangers. I don't know what kind of contract he's on. They can keep him and they can try their best to develop him. He'll end up like is it Hardy at Livingston. He can end up like that, or he could kind of push on a wee bit more. But he could be worth about 250,000 to Rangers.
I think he's not going to break into that team anytime soon. But no, good on him. Honourable mention as well to I think Harry Burgoyne, who had he played the full season I think would have been right up there for the player of the season as well. And he saved us a lot on that last day in at Dunfermline. And countless other
some
times.
Absolutely outstanding saves. Outstanding.
And I think we think he'll go on to have a big future. Hopefully the Premier League, I thought, but I know positions are slim and slimmer these days, so we'll wait and see there. Do you have a moment of the year?
Moment of the year? Not really.
The only thing I had that came to mind was Jordan McGee getting those thunderstrikes against Ayr United on the telly.
They were good on Friday night.
Aye. Beyond that, I am struggling.
Kind of struggling.
Apart from when I did my Instagram story on the last day to that Medusa song, and when I put up the league table, it matched perfectly to down, 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 da, 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 da. Like, yes, nailed the cue. It wasn't even
score.
No, it wasn't even track. I was that optimistic about the last game. So
I can't think of anything else really. I mean, like the winner, the Rudden winner. The Keeler Dunn winner, I should say. The Dunfermline just 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Gosh, we forgot about Keeler Dunn as well, eh?
what a difference he would have made if he hadn't got himself sent off.
Do you know what? Keeler Dunn I actually think is a talented player, but
he might stay for next season.
There was always one too many touches from him. I also heard it was funny because I was walking through the corridors and he was talking to the Ross County manager, trying to get some of his stuff back and stuff. He's like, yeah, we'll send it down. I was like, he's not sending it down. He's just pretending. He won't see you next year. That's you done. Davis Keeler done.
Little does he know it's already in a skip.
That's the thing. Yeah, it's that awkward kind of breakup moment where we don't care about you anymore. Bye bye.
It's just in the black bin.
I tell you what though, like, see Stuart Kettle, are they both called Stuart? Stuart Finlay and Stuart Kettlewell.
Yeah, maybe.
His hair is immaculate, like perfectly short at the side, like you're telling it over. And he's got that kind of grey white beard as well, and I'm like, it's just the perfect balance. I'd love my hair to be grey, by the way. I think it'd look fantastic.
I'd like to have hair.
The cruel world, eh? Next award, best statement of the year. Few to pick from. There's been quite a lot.
That is a few. It's going to be the one accusing the fans of being racist.
Oh my gosh, that was this season as well.
The existential kind of, and by the way, we don't like the abuse that we're getting. Kind of underlying tone of all Falkirk fans are racist and stop giving us abuse.
Oh, that was horrendous because that was later proved not to have been.
It was unproven.
A Falkirk fan at all. That probably counts as lowest moment of the year as well, as being beaten by Stennismuir.
4-2. 4 goals against.
I know. Who themselves have just finished second bottom. I'm actually away to hoping to go and see their playoff game against Annan on Saturday, the home leg at Ochilview. Nice. And I would recommend Falkirk fans that you do go and spend your money at somewhere like Stennismuir or somewhere like East Stirlingshire. Camlin Juniors, I know the season ticket's like a quarter of the price or something. It's like insanely cheap. You've been to Bowness United before.
That's quite good. If on a nice day, it's quite good.
I must admit, I've had much friendlier experiences at Stennismuir. It's more relaxed. They don't accuse you of being racist or steal your money. So, I always thought the statements involving the Morton things were quite funny because it was like, we were severely disappointed by this ruling and we'll fight it to the death. And it was just like, really? And then the statement about not wanting the fan investment as things were going terribly was wonderful timings of things as well. So do you have any categories you'd like to add, Jonathan?
Oh, take a pick. Who had the Gary Lock effect? Gary Lock effect award. It's one if you listened to the podcast before. My theory on Gary Lock being he's very good at the start and then rapidly falls off a cliff after 8 games.
If only we had that uplift at the start.
Any nominations?
We could talk about our worst player of the year. I think the first person you would nominate is probably Kieran McKenna.
Really?
Yeah.
I think there's a few Hartley sidings in there that would be sort of pushing hard. Dylan Mackin.
Oh, Dylan Mackin! My goodness, I saw his name on a list the other day, and I thought, oh my lord, he came in at the start of the season, didn't he?
Yeah,
he wasn't.
I remember going to East Fife in the League Cup and thinking, who the fuck is this guy?
He wasn't fit. He was, on the kind of tubbier side of things. Did nothing.
He scored 8 goals for Stirling Albion this season.
Oh well, at least he's doing something somewhere.
Aye, League 2. And we paid money for him.
Like 50 grand.
Aye, 50 grand to get him out of Livingston, and he's now playing for Stirling.
Livingston are having a laugh. Yeah, they pinched all the good stuff from us and gave us absolute tripe. I don't know where Marcus Haber is actually plying his trade. He didn't.
Canadian Football League.
There you go. Kevin O'Hara as well scored a grand total of 0 goals for Stennismuir, which leaves his grand total still on 3 since scoring for East Fife in like 2016, which is miserable.
Professional goals. Not very
also,
good.
another stat I saw when I was looking up the squads and things like that was David Mitchell is 29 years old. I thought he was a youngster and that we were giving him his chance, but apparently not. Well, Fazan maybe has a shout for being worst player of the season as well.
Yeah, because it has to be something that's played reasonably consistently. Well, played a few games. Because you've got guys like Tomo and Evans who never really appeared.
I think he did
Samet
one
was
or
barely there.
Samet was dreadful.
Totally anonymous.
Samet was dreadful.
Totally anonymous.
Aye.
I think Abdul Osman is up there on the list, especially on the Ray McKinnon side.
I think he's done all
been
right.
dreadful.
Like, he was all right against Dunfermline, for example, which would put him in kind of better graces than perhaps some other people.
I think he looked a lot better in the back three. She had two people kind of covering his mistakes. But the same with Scott Harrison, actually. See when Harrison played in the back three when McKinnon came in, what a difference it made to the guy.
Yes. Well, he was about the only one that improved, I think, through the season. Oh, I suppose Payton, you could argue.
I think Tom Dallison was the biggest letdown.
Aye.
Because he came in and he had a bit of stature about him and you thought, you know what, we may have a player here. And he was actually push fair to a football.
Yeah. Well, he kind of had that leadership quality about him in the first few games. You know, he was doing a lot of communications with the defence, but things obviously went very badly, very quickly.
The funniest one I remember now is I went up to Arbroath in the summer for a pre-season game against Aberdeen. And who was in the back? It was Dallison and Harrison were the back two. And about an hour in, Harrison was subbed on and Aaron Muirhead came on. And everything had been quite calm, Dallison taking control, barking the others. Muirhead came on and just started screaming at abuse at absolutely everybody who was listening to him. And you had Dallison going up to him going, "Oh, you calm down." It's a pre-season game. It finished on each.
And we ended up losing both.
It was just an absolute head case. Like, I remember that quite vividly. I remember Paul Payton going absolutely through. Oh, what was his name? Gary Mackay-Stephen, I think it was. Cleaned the boot, 2-footed challenge.
In a friendly game.
Yeah.
I think it reflects his temperament a wee bit.
This is it.
And that was the thing as well, was that was it against Morton that Edgingelly and McKenna completely clattered into each other.
Aye.
Nigh on KO'd each other for
They just didn't talk to each other.
So that defensive partnership didn't work at all towards the latter part of the season. Edgingelly had a real task on his hands, and he's not the freshest chicken in the hut.
No, I wouldn't be surprised if he's here next season as well.
I don't know. See, with an international player like that, you know, it's amazing he actually came to Falkirk, because I don't know if he maybe moved from Dundee or where.
He's on loan. He's on loan for Dundee United.
Well, I know, but like, you know, did he move down here or whatever? And you know, is there a possibility to go back to France? Because I know Mallory Martin did something similar from Hearts to Dunfermline, but didn't get.
I sat on the bench.
Yeah,
all
didn't
season.
get a great amount of joy there. I was looking as well, like folk like Longridge and stuff still at Dunfermline, barely featuring. But at the same time, we have a few refugees littering the leagues in much higher positions than us. Tumulty at Morton has managed to stay up, for example.
Aye, Mark Kerr, Aaron Muirhead,
Ayr United, who you were going to give an award to, you know, most bizarre fan moment of the year, being chucked out of the away stand at the Falkirk end, the United fans.
Oh yeah, yep. That has to go down as one of the moments of the year though, because we actually made it on national telly.
No, we didn't. We made it on the the extended rerun cut. Which kind of made some headlines. To the point they actually wanted us to play. They wanted us to play. This was funny. They wanted us to play the Doctor Who theme. Because of this incident.
Because it was David Tennant.
I was about to ask, can you explain why? Because that's quite the connection to make in your mind, like, woo, woo, woo. Oh, that's Doctor Who. David Tennant. David Tennant was on Have I Got News For You. They're talking about the tree. What?
That's
well, surely if you were playing the Have I Got News For You theme song.
You play the theme tune.
Well, exactly.
It's one of the best theme tunes you can get on a game show.
Aye. But... no, that was one of the more. That was almost as bad as them wanting us to play "Oh When the Saints" on the last game of last season to celebrate. Who's the guy that moved to Australia at the end of the year?
Alex Smith.
They wanted to celebrate him and his St Mirren lineage by playing "Oh When the Saints" at the Falkirk Stadium, and it was like, that's Mibs not the good. Although I did play that "Through Fire and Flames" by. Old Country or whatever, which was a Dunfermline song, which wasn't which I wasn't fully aware of. So you won't be having to deal with those mistakes, or you won't be having to deal with Pitbull's Fireball, which I see gets mixed reaction on a weekly basis. But well, the comment I got this week was, "I calm down. We're not in like, you know, sunny Caribbean or anything. I'm like, it's Mr. Worldwide, guys. He is endorsing all over the world. Pitbull is the man. But aye. Did you ever think, to kind of round off in some closing thoughts, because I think this has been fairly negative,
Yes.
but some good points I think have been made. So do like and do check out Sofa Manager website for, I'm sure, more extended views on this, which are to come. Did you ever think you'd see your team in League One?
Over the last 2 years, it's been a distinct possibility. If I was to go back to maybe like we did get relegated 2010, there was no danger in it. Mid-table, aye, and it's been like that for the last 9 or 10 years. But League One was never considered. There's always a break in last season, or
there's always like a
small part
cushion.
There was always a buffer.
Yeah.
This season, when Alloa were that good that there wasn't that buffer anymore, and we've been found wanting.
Exactly. As soon as it got competitive, we couldn't handle it. But I sincerely hope that the move to League One will give the club a good shake. And I think it, like, for example, Dunfermline going down to League One, I don't think did them too much harm. I think they came back stronger from it, although they were really struggling towards the tail end of this season. And you look at Ayr United coming up from League One with a bit of momentum. I think Arbroath have every chance of doing the same thing next season. Maybe not quite as high as Ayr, but certainly if you put a string of results together.
If Arbroath survive, it's a great season for them.
So hopefully it gives things a good shake and we can go from there. I did think it was interesting as well that Ayr United on the last game of the season, Ian McCall, there were two different perspectives as how the last game would go. Ross County, playing Falkirk, said that they would respect the league. And I was like, oh, brilliant. Ian McCall, who's Ayr United faced Alloa, said they owe them a favour. Now, Shankland came off after about 50, 60 minutes into the game, and you're going, and to be fair to them, would you rather be playing Alloa or would you rather be playing Falkirk next season? So,
for these kind of teams, I think they would rather have Alloa in the league.
I think so. But I think Shankland's just back from injury, so I'm not implying anything sinister.
The thing is, we'd have every right to do that, to rest our players for big games.
Exactly. So, I suppose we won't be back in 2019-2020 because you're not buying a season ticket. I'm not going to be at the games. So this might well be the last Falkirk football content you hear on this podcast going forward.
To such an extent, anyway.
Well, I suppose.
It's all about the Charlton now.
It's all about. I love a bit of Charlton.
No, I'm going on. I'm getting my tickets tomorrow.
Oh, for the playoffs.
For the playoff semi-finals.
That was the problem, was if Falkirk played in the playoffs, they would have got Montrose, who beat us at the start of the season. So that wouldn't have been great either. Lyle Taylor, obviously Charlton striker's another one we forgot to mention also. And you do need to try that Luton away end that I sent you the other day, which was just in a terrace of houses.
No, I'm hoping for folk that are based in London now, so I'm hoping Charlton do get promoted because they're in the same league as Millwall next season, which is an absolutely ginormous derby down here.
Oh, is it?
Absolutely buzzing on that. Two South London teams absolutely hate each other. Oh, everybody hates Millwall. It's a bit like Falkirk.
At this moment in time, yes. At this moment in time, I've actually got my Charlton shirt just over the shoulder, which will probably be cropped out, but people have probably seen it in previous episodes anyway. But no, I guess time to round off, and I'll say thank you for joining us from myself, Paul.
All the best, guys.
And join us again in the summer, where you'll be hopefully hearing about next week with myself and Darren, our trip to Stennismuir to see Annan Athletic. And I think Christian Nade plays for Annan Athletic, by the way, so that could be something of interest. As well as hopefully some Champions League content in the coming weeks, because we've kind of strayed away from European stuff recently. So stay tuned for that. But thank you again for joining me, John, and have a good evening, a good afternoon, and a good morning. See you later. If hit record on that, that's recording. So if I do that should line up my video. Now, are you recording your audio? Do you want to start recording your audio now?
Right, that's the audio recording. And it's
That's the
appearing
audio
on the screen.
recording.
Yep.
Right, what we'll now do is a rendition of You Are My Falkirk.
Right.
So I can roughly, so we don't need to sing. Well, it could make it into post. You are my Falkirk.
My only Falkirk.
You make me happy.
When skies are grey.
You'll never know.
How much I love you.
And you'll never take
my Falkirk away.
Yes, you shall. And that's where we start, episode 78.
Doing the seaside leagues.
Exactly. Well, that'll be the theme. Like, I do love to be beside the seaside.
Good choice.
Aye. Right, are we ready to go?
Aye, good to go.
Okay.